Hey, welcome back to the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast, the podcast that really our goal is to uplift and honor coaches from around the country, sometimes even around the world. Super excited about today's guest. Real quick before we get into today's amazing guest, this is going to be a lot of fun here. Just want to plug real quick, December 12th, we're taking the show on the road. We're going to do a live taping of the Gill Connections podcast at the USTF CCCA Coaches Convention out in Denver, Colorado. So what does that mean? We're going to be on YouTube live on December 12th from 5 to 7 p.m. Denver time. So that's 6 to 8 Central. You can do the math on the Pacific and West Coast, East Coast, all that kind of good stuff. So 2 ways for you to be involved. If you're at the convention, come by the Gill booth and sit down. We're going to do 5-ish minutes interviews, just have fun, really no hard-hitting journalistic questions here. We're just going to have a lot of fun and record for a couple of hours. And if you can't make it to the convention, check us out on YouTube Live. If you want that link, hit me up on Twitter. It's on LinkedIn, Facebook. I've put it all over the place. So you can be involved and check us out live. See what kind of foot in my mouth I do on a live recording. I get to edit these live. I'm stuck. We're going to see what happens. So join us on December 12th, 5 to 7 p.m. Denver time on YouTube Live or right there at the USTF CCCA convention. Okay, that's enough of a commercial because we want to hop into this. We've got the head coach and athletic director, and I think this guy just graduated from college yesterday. So this is going to be interesting to see what a young AD who was also a track coach, how his life and work happens here. But help me welcome the head coach of Village Tech Schools. Go check out their mascot. No contest, the coolest mascot there is. We're going to have to get into that and figure out what that is too. But help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Ben Nicholas. Ben, how are you, sir?
I am doing well. Thank you so much again for having me on. This has been a dream come true just to be here and be able to put our story on tape.
You know, our whole goal with the podcast is to make it to where it would be someone's dream to be on it. So, that's humbling to hear you say that, man.
Well, this is super cool. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Hopefully we won't turn this into a nightmare for you.
No. This is going to be great. This is going to be perfect.
Well, speaking of nightmares, so we're actually, you're probably listening to this in the end of November or end of December, or because I love podcast evergreen, you might be listening to this in the year 2029 for all I know, but we're recording this on Halloween Day. And so speaking of nightmare and Halloween, I've got to jump right into it. Village Tech, your mascot. This thing is the creepiest, coolest, unique. Tell us what this is and how this came about.
Okay, so we are the Viper Squids. And there's a little bit of a legend that goes with this mascot. And so all of our founding administrators have a slightly different rendition of this story. So I'm going to do my best to kind of compile them all together. So the Viper Squid is this terrifying deep sea legend creature. And as they were putting together the school, they were writing the charter, they were figuring that stuff out. They had decided that they wanted to be Village Tech. And I believe at this point they had decided they wanted to be purple, but they could not figure out a mascot. And so they're kind of getting the crunch time of like, this stuff is due. We got to go. They've been working nonstop for hours on hours on hours. They took a break throughout the weekend. And so the now superintendent was away with his wife to go back to see a college football game. And they're all kind of split up all over Texas here a little bit. And the way the story goes is that they frantically realized they did not have a school mascot. So they called each other up on the phone as he's driving. They're all kind of annoyed with each other at this point because it's the weekend. They're trying to be alone. And they're going through it. They were like, oh, the varmints, should we be the vipers? And the legend has it that one of the administrators' kids was doing a book report on an animal at the time. And so she found Viper Squid as an animal and was like, oh, this should be it. And they're like, well, what is a Viper Squid? What goes into it? Well, it's a squid. And so squids are one of the most dominating forces in the ocean, right? They're not aggressive in the sense that if you don't provoke them, they're not coming out. But if you do provoke them, they will tear you up. So they like that. Squids are very intelligent in the ocean. They like that. The Viper Squid, supposedly, legend has it, one of its defense mechanisms it will literally turn itself inside out as a defense mechanism to either to camouflage or it's something about the spikes or something on the inside of it. And so they like the idea that like when students are challenged, they will turn themselves inside out. They'll look within them to figure out the solution. And then the eyes of the Viper squid are just ginormous. They're huge, and they're nocturnal and all these things I can see in the ocean. They like the idea is that students' eyes are not focused solely on the here, but what it could be, the future, looking down the road. So that's sort of the legend of the Viper squid, at least the way that I've told it. It's been told so many times that who knows what's true or what's not. I will tell you that Viper squid might not come up on your Google search. What might come up is vampire squid. So my favorite part of the story is that we have either created a new legendary beast in the ocean, or there was one heck of a book report on this animal. So
you know what I love about that? First of all, I love that the origin story is not like, yeah, we were out sailing and got attacked. It's like, okay, good. No one had to die for this this story. But what I like about it is, you know, we look back on things now. You know, we have perspective and experience. And I love when there's like forks in the road that seem so small when we're deciding, but end up becoming fairly large, right? If that kid had not been doing a book report on the, you could be the gazelles right now. You could be the French poodles.
The pioneers. We were almost supposedly the pioneers. Was a story that I've heard.
That was the other person's kid doing that book report, and they were like, you know, that kid's not that bright, so let's just go over here with the squid. So that sounds like fairly recently, though. How long has the school been around?
The school has been around since 2013.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Holy cow.
We're pretty new in the school game. We are in our permanent location here in Duncanville. This is our 5th year. We're on our 5th year currently, being in this permanent location. So we started off in Cedar Hill. This is even before I was at Village Tech, and they were at a church. And we had a bunch of portables, and we knew this was not our permanent location, and so we moved to Duncanville, and we are in our permanent location now. So
well, the other cool thing I like about this is how many meets do you go to and run into the same mascot as you?
Never.
Never.
I'll tell you this. It's kind of it depends on the day. It depends on like where our kids are and if they're locked in or not. But it is kind of cool to be asked so frequently what the Viper squid is. From a competition standpoint, it's like, okay, you're not worrying about your own race, you're worrying about us. And
right.
Like, that's a pretty cool thing. Even if only for that moment. I like to tell our kids like it's a competitive advantage, and they kind of enjoy it now.
You know, I grew up as a high schooler. I was a Tiger, which is like the most common high school mascot there is. And then for college, I went to the greatest school in the university, greatest school in the world, Troy State University. We were the Trojans, which isn't the most uncommon mascot as well. Vipers, though, that's kind of cool, man. I like Viper Squids. I love that.
Yeah, the Viper squid. Yeah, you get the full name in there.
That's right. Yeah. If you just say Viper, that's a whole different thing.
A whole different animal.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for that background. There was no way this was going to happen without me trying to figure out what in the world and how the origin story. Well, let's take a step back and talk about your origin story, Ben. You know, at some point, coaching, assuming that you were an athlete, at some point in your life, could have happened in middle school, high school, college, after coaching flipped for you. It became something that, or it was something that happened to you. Coach barked out orders, told you to run or throw and do X, Y, and Z. And at some point it switched and it was like, oh, wait a minute. I could be a coach. Like I could be the person leading and in charge of this great sport. Where does coaching begin for you?
Yeah. So I've always been a runner. I was always enjoying that process, racing my dad in the driveway and all that stuff, right? And so I did cross country when I was in middle school, and then I actually was in marching band in high school. And so my first 2 years of high school, I ran track, but I did not run cross country. And so Coach Calderon at Mansfield High School, at our home track meet, was like, hey man, you should run cross country. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Why haven't you been out? But you're doing this track thing. Please come out. This is really cool recruit. I thought I was the coolest kid in the world. I was recruited by the coach. It's the greatest feeling. So I ran my junior and senior years, and loved it, and thought, you know what, maybe maybe coaching is my future, maybe teaching is my future. But I didn't really know. And, when you're a high school kid, the world is so large and vast. It's like, what do I do? Where do I go? And so I'm a fourth generation Oklahoma State Cowboy. So I
Wow.
knew I was going here for sure. Absolutely love it. It might not be Troy, but it's also pretty up there on the top tier ranks.
It's number two. I get
yeah,
I'm
fair.
married. I'm married to an Illinois grad, and we're having a football season like no other. So Illinois has to be number two, and then Oklahoma State, which
Okay, all right.
Oklahoma State normally has good football seasons.
This won't make sense in the future, but this last game was a little rough. But we did just win not NCAA's. I'm sorry. We just won Big 12s for cross country on both the men's and women's side.
Like the third or fourth in a row or something like that. I mean, he does a really fantastic job. Dave Smith, I don't know. He kind of goes in and out on like popularity. Like people was like, oh, the guy's a genius, which he is.
I get that.
And then they'll forget about him and think about other schools, which again, other schools and coaches are amazing as well. But Dave Smith just seems to be so consistent with his teams. It's quite scary. So the only reason I actually know that is because our CEO's son runs for Baylor. And so I pay attention to the Big 12 cross country meet to watch how, the Ryan Hodge does, and saw like Oklahoma State on the men's side went like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 or something like that. It was like, holy crap. I mean, who does that? It's cool. Amazing. And not a fluke of a conference here, by the way. Quite tough. So yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go. That's amazing.
No, you're good. So I didn't really know what to do. I had a pretty I was above average, but I wasn't great in cross country or track. And then my senior year of high school, I got put in the 800. I say put because I did not want to go there. And turns out I was pretty good at the 800. And so I was able to drop down to about 156 by the end of my senior season with only about 3 or 4 races in there, maybe 4 or 5. Anyway, college was not really a thing to run. And then all of a sudden, what do I do? What's going to happen? What's going on? And so I didn't really know where I wanted life to head. So I knew I kind of wanted to do sports journalism. When I was in cross country my senior year, we had like the local newspaper interview us. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I chose sports media. I chose to go to Oklahoma State. I chose not to go into coaching or teaching any of that, but I never really put running on the back burner. And I kind of sort of half-heartedly held this dream that I was going to run for Oklahoma State and do all this stuff. And the short of that is it didn't really work out the way I thought it was going to. Which I'm sure is the case.
Yeah, for me. Never does. Yeah.
I have this very average story. It's not nothing great happened. There's no like perseverance moment where it's like it all works out.
I was gonna say congratulations. You're normal. That's what.
Yeah, no, I'm just a normal person. And so by the time my junior year of college ran around, I kind of it was more hate than love relationship with running. I felt like I was slighted by it. I felt that I was just. The things that didn't work out, I tried to get on Oklahoma State's team. It didn't really work out the way I had hoped it would have. I ran professionally. I put that in quotation marks. I made about $200 from my racing career, worth of gifts, small, whatever else from being invited to these races. So I was really hating life and I was really hating running. And I got to my junior year and I had a class where I had to pick a local sports team. Preferably from the high school, and I was going to cover that. And Ray Murray was my teacher, and I thought I was going to get away with this one in this class. I was going to I'm going to pick the cross country team. I don't even have to go. I'm just going to run. I'm not going to have to do any work. It's going to be great. So I picked the cross country team. I go and meet the cross country team at Stillwater High School in Oklahoma, and come out to a couple of practices, watch them around, and I'm like, something seems off here. Like, I don't know, like something felt weird. I didn't know really what it was. And so I was talking to the coach and he was like, here's the deal. I'll let you continue to do interviews with my kids if you come out and help me coach. I was like, I don't know. He's like, you need this grade, right? And I was like, I mean, yes. And he's like, well, then you're going to come out and coach.
Wow.
So I started working with them and within a week fell in love. That was the best, like, best thing that could have ever happened to me.
So as you think, stay right there, because you're in the moment, right? Like you're kind of in your head right now. You can remember the first
Yeah.
practice and the first, long run, whatever. You just said after the first week, like you were like this was it. Like this
Yeah.
was a defining moment for you this week. What was it as you look back to that week? Was it the camaraderie with the kids? Was it, I hesitate to say that you saw any improvements in the kid. Sometimes coaches get addicted to the improvement. They take a kid from 5-minute mile to 4:40. That's amazing. But you had, just a week. So you really probably couldn't do that. Was it being outside? I mean, that's a great part of our gig, right? We get to go outside a lot. And as teachers, we're inside, as sales professionals, we're inside. So that's kind of a draw. What was it as you think about that week? What was it that was the hook?
I think when I was in high school cross country, what made the experience so wonderful was the teammates that I had. I really felt like we captured lightning in a bottle. And to this day, my big philosophy for our team, my team now, is that the wins and losses and all that stuff's going to fade, but the relationship you have with your brothers and sisters in that team is the most important thing. That in 10 years time, whatever our communication device is, you're able to pick that up and talk as if nothing ever happened. So I just assumed incorrectly. I assumed that my team was a special one and no one else could be like us and we're great. And so when I came into Stillwater High School, I didn't necessarily see like the same level of team, but I saw the potential for that. And I felt in that 1 week that I had something to give to this, and there was a higher purpose and a bigger calling for me, just working with those athletes. And that, yeah, again, sport is important, and cross country and the training and whatever, and the fartleks you're going to run and all that stuff. But more than that, I felt that I could make a team. I don't know. Like I feel like I make a team out of that and create a bond out of these kids that were doing this thing, but weren't necessarily connected the same way, I guess. Yeah, it really felt divine. If I'm really honest with you, it really felt divine that I really enjoyed sports media. I'm very thankful for the degree, and I'm proud of that. But when you're so close to what your purpose is, it feels like it's just resonance. It feels like it was just like shaking, so close to being in tune, but it wasn't quite there. And when I finally got into the coaching game, if you will, when I finally was able to start coaching, even as a college kid who was really just helping out, who's just kind of watching things, I wasn't even like assigning anything, I was just there. It felt like finally everything was in tune. And I don't know, it really felt divine is the best way I can explain it.
It sounds like you might have been searching for something.
Yeah, so I had this hate relationship with running, and I continued to do it because it's kind of all I knew, and I'd done it for so long. But yeah, I found it, and I was like, okay, my purpose in this whole thing is not to be a runner; it's to be a coach. Like, and that has been a complete momentum shift. Like, don't get me wrong, I would still love to be fast. I still try to be fast. I'm still trying to compete. Shoot, if I got a chance for the Olympics tomorrow, I would take it. But if I had a chance between me and then sending one of my kids to the Olympics, like I would take that immediately. I don't know. It's just a flip. It's a whole different mindset flip, and just buying into something that's bigger than yourself, I suppose. And hopefully, this sounds so selfish, but like hopefully being an inspiration and a leader to kids that maybe don't have one outside of that. I mean,
it's interesting you brought up that word selfish. We haven't discussed that too much here lately on the podcast. We had several episodes where this really came into play about, we tend to think that selfishness and selflessness are complete ends of the spectrum, and you must be one or the other. You're either selfish or, boy, you are selfless. You're over there. And in fact, it's kind of a in the middle game there. To be selfless, you have to be selfish in aspects. If you want to give of others, well, then you have to make sure you're taking care of yourself. So yeah, I don't think it's selfish when you talk about like, I wanted to be a leader for someone else. That's a selfless attitude. To get there, you got to do some selfish things of improving yourself and cutting out things and activities that don't align with this goal set. So I like that a lot. It's interesting the way you were describing, like you found it, and you talked about resonance, right? Which is vibration and audio waves coming together. We all search for, whether we want to admit it or not, we're all searching for people that are like us. We all want our tribe. We all want our gang. We all want our group. And some of us find it early. Some of us try to fit in where we really aren't, that square peg, round hole theory, and we get into trouble. So what I love about this is that you found it still relatively early in your life. We try to think that we should have everything figured out by the time we're 20, 25, 30 years old. In reality, we're going to live to 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. We got a lot of runway in front of us. So to find that so early, that's pretty special.
No, it was. I'm incredibly blessed for it. And I think even in those first early years, I was still kind of searching for, I knew that it was coaching. I knew that's where I wanted to be, but it was kind of searching for, like, how does that look? How does that feel? What part of coaching is important, and what's, the priority level of that. And so every young coach, I do it still to this day. I'm only 28, almost 29. Old coaches do it too, though. You get so caught up in the wins and losses sometimes. And so especially early on, I was trying to prove by my name, I am Ben Nicholas. I am going to be the greatest coach ever to live. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just was like, this is what we're doing and it's going to work. And it's a huge, huge testament to Rusty Atkins for sure at Stillwater High School, but then David Crines as well for just allowing this, what was I, 19, 20-year-old kid at the time, to come in and mess around, basically. That they allowed me, and gave me so much grace and patience. And so David Crines was definitely the how do we do this? How does this work out? How do our bodies move through space? What are the biomechanics? What all this stuff? Because I knew nothing of that now, and I'm still learning. I'm still growing in that area. But I was just like, oh, well, we ran this because that's what we did in high school. That's not how coaching works. And then Rusty Atkins was the why. Like, why does all this matter? Why does sport matter? Why do these kids matter? And when I was probably my first year, because I only spent 2 years there before I graduated out. I think it was my first year, but it might have been my second. I had this moment with him, and he's this stoic Native American man, man of few words. He's probably rolling his eyes if he's listening to this. But I had this conversation with him, and it was like, basically, like, what's important in this life? Like, what's important in this coaching world? And he was like, people first, student second. If there is time after both of those are completed, then sport third. It's like, that's the only thing that matters. And that, as a, again, 20-year-old kid, blew my mind of like, holy crap, like, sport third, like, we're coaches. How can sport be third? That should be at least number two. And no, and it's not. And I still, to this day, it took me some time, but I still to this day believe that, that these athletes that we're dealing with, especially at the high school level, they're just kids. They're just kids. No matter how smart or wise or mature or tall or fast or whatever these kids are, they're still just kids. And so who they are as people matter first and foremost. Who they are as student before athletes, student athletes comes second. And then if you got both of those taken care of, then you can worry about their athletic performance and what are we doing to get faster, stronger, whatever, in there. And so that was a huge, huge thing that I am continually, still growing through. I think everyone does, but that was something that just shook my world when I was my second year of coaching.
Well, let's unpack a couple of things there. That was super interesting. I love that, someone like a Dana and a Rusty could pour into you, right? I mean, we can get started in a new career. We don't even know we're in a career at that aspect. Right, we just know we found something we love, and we can start a new career and then falter fast and hurt others and hurt ourselves and find out that, it might have been our right path, but we screwed up so many times, didn't have people in our lives that correct us, that we fall to the wayside and go do something else. You said something. So I don't know if I'm saying I'm famous for this, but I do love doing this. And it's a little harder sometimes. Maybe it's easier with people that I'm just meeting for the first time, Ben, but I really like to challenge people sometimes.
Okay.
You mentioned Rusty might be rolling his eyes right now. If my wife is listening, she's definitely rolling her eyes right now. So you said, when you first got into it, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, when you're picking workouts and stuff, you were doing what you did in high school because that's how you were coached. And you made the statement, and that's not how coaching works. Now I'm going to challenge that, because that is exactly how coaching works to begin with. Now you've gone through some years and journey, so you're talking from experience. You're like, oh well, I started doing coaching education and learning from others, and now I would never do what I did back then. However, that's 99.9% of us. When we get into coaching, we only know what we know, and that's what our coaches did to us for our workouts, whether those are good or bad workouts. Sometimes they're good. It's like, man, thank goodness you had coach so-and-so, because you're starting off with a pretty good base. And then other times it's like, man, maybe it's good that you had coach so-and-so, because you've learned that's not what we should be doing at all.
Right.
And that's actually why I think, there's some amazing things going on in track and field on all levels. High school right now, there are kids running, like, what do we just have, like so many 4-minute milers in high school, like more than we had like in the last decade plus added together. It used to be like once every 2-3 years we'd have a kid. This past year I think we had 3 or 4 or 5 or something. It was just amazing. So we got some amazing things going on. I think we're just at the tail beginning, the head beginning of this thing. And here's why. The coaches that are coaching now are better educated, more in tune, and have more opportunities to learn with YouTube and coaching education and Zooms and things like that, right? So when they first got into coaching, they fell back to how they were coached, and they had to learn along the way. Well, today's kids are being coached at a much higher level to begin with. So who are the future coaches? Those kids, right? So when they become coaches and fall back to their training, well, their training is going to be at a much higher level to begin with. And they're going to continue to get better as they go through coaching education and things like that. So I think that's exactly how coaching works, how it starts, I should say.
How it starts,
Yeah. Hey, the other.
I totally agree with you. I think overall, as a society, we're getting more athletic, getting faster, and I think part of that is figuring out a little bit more of the sciences and figuring out how these systems and whatever work. But I think we're also getting to a point now where coaches care a lot more. And not that this is nothing. Coach Cowdon is fantastic. That is not a reflection of him. But I think even before his time, sometimes there were coaches that were in programs that were doing it because they've always done that.
Sure.
They had been in this school system, they had been this thing, and they were like, oh, well, I was a football coach, but now I got put in cross country, or I was a track coach and now I got put in basketball, or whatever the case is. And they're just there to do it and make sure everyone's alive at the end of the day and go on. And I think now we're in a time, and it's a really cool moment to be in, where coaches care a lot more about what they're doing. And I think that care and that drive reflects. So early on in my coaching education, I think my first year, there was a coach at Deer Creek in Oklahoma. His name is David Ryden, and they're just so successful in everything they do. They're the South Lake Carroll of Oklahoma, is what I would say. And I was young and dumb, and I was like, Coach, like, what's the secret? Like, what is it? Like, give me. And he was like, listen, you can have the scientifically best workouts in the world, but if you don't believe in your athletes, you don't believe in your kids, and they know that you don't believe in them, it does not matter what's going to happen. They're going to be failures. They're not going to be successful. He said, conversely, you can spin around 3 times and run up a hill backwards once a week. And if you believe in your kids and those kids feel that belief and passion and care from you, he's like, they're going to be champions every day of the week. He's like, it does not. And so that's been another big sticking point of me.
What did that, when you heard that from him, how did that change you?
It took actually a lot of pressure off of me, because again, even to this day, even though I've heard, I've been through the USATF stuff and I've been through all this deal, the science aspect of it's kind of hard. It is kind of hard, and for any coach that's listening to this, like, it is not this easy process. You're just like, oh, I get it now. It takes time and to study and to learn, and I'm still learning, and it's just part of growing it. But one thing I can do, immediately took the pressure off, is like, I can believe in my kids, and I can go all in for them and be. And I to this day, I'm blunt with my kids now. It's like, I don't necessarily know all the answers, but we're going to figure it out together. Like, here's a plan that I'm laying out for you. And if you have a question on that, you don't agree with this for whatever, like, challenge me, tell me, talk to me, like, ask questions. I was like, I'm a hold a veto on it, but like, I want you to have that, so we are on the same page, we understand, and maybe this isn't the best thing for you. So giving that accountability to kids is huge for me. But I say all that to say, like, we can do not great workouts the entire time, but I fully 100% believe in my kids every moment, every day. And that's something I can go all in for all the time. And so it's pressure relieving.
As someone who came from a non-scientific background, and don't take that word the highest of, like, PhD, like, biomechanics major or chemistry major, or even physics major, right? It sounds like you maybe put a lot of pressure on yourself when you first got in.
I did. Because even in that first year, I said this, I was just doing what Mansfield High School had done when I was a senior. And these kids, their performances weren't responding to it. And it was this, like, oh my gosh moment, like, what am I doing? What is happening here? And part of it is learning that you can't have a great week of workouts and expect to see, like, 5-minute PRs the next day. Like, it's not how that works.
Wouldn't that be fun though?
It would be so cool. It would be so cool. But also, again, the same things that I did don't necessarily work for other kids, because they're not me and I'm not them. And so, coaching is a little bit of a game in that set, and especially in cross country and track, because you're not trying to be fast at the beginning of the season. You're trying to be fast at the very end. It's kind of a game and a hope and a prayer sometimes, that you're like, man, I hope this works. And I, like, all the signs are pointing to it. And sometimes you can do everything right and it doesn't work out. And so that's why it's so important to me that who these athletes and who these people are when they exit our program is so much more important than the wins and the losses and stuff. And my humble brag here is that we won district here for cross country. And it's been a 5-year journey to get to this point. We've done it. It's great. It's amazing. But I'm incredibly proud of my boys and girls, not because of their trophy or their championship. That all's going to fade and be in a landfill at some point. Like, what's important is that they have grown together as a team. They are better people. They're more responsible. They're better communicators. They have empathy for each other. They care about each other. One of my seniors, well, actually both of them are. I had the number 1 and number 2 students in the class this year, like valedictorian and salutatorian.
Oh, wow.
They're on my cross country team. And I had an 8th grade boy who was not necessarily doing so great in math this year. And without hesitation, without like, oh, coach, I don't want to, I can't. I was like, hey, like, can you help tutor this kid? And immediately, yes, coach. Like, no hesitation. They were genuinely happy to do it. They had the love for their teammate to do. Like, that's what matters most in all of this. And I mean, so yeah, it took a lot of pressure off of it. It took a lot of pressure off of me.
What you just explained there, what you just described there, that kind of is the definition of when I say, because sometimes, I especially because of my outreach on Twitter and outreach here through the podcast. So I say a lot of the same things over and over again, partly because, well, it's important. So you need to hear it several times, but I talk about, and, I mentioned this to you, Ben, before during our pre-recording. I said, what you do as a high school coach, as a high school track coach, as a track coach is immeasurable. It's invaluable what you do. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean the kid you take from 11 flat to 1040, the kid you take from 450 to 420. I mean the positive impact that you make on young people on a daily basis. And you kind of just gave like the definition to what I say, what I mean when I say what you do is immeasurable. Whether you have 2 kids on your team or 200 kids, it literally is impactful. 2 kids becomes 2,000 because they become moms and dads and owners of businesses and clerks, and and they take those lessons and leadership that you give them and spread to others. So your tree is, even at such a young age here, Ben, your tree grows daily because of the impact you make. So as you were explaining that, I was like, man, that's the very definition of what I say 100 times a day, man. I love it. I love it. Well, I love that growth with your individual students there. Let's continue with your growth, because where we left off with your story is you go to practice there at Stillwater High School. And that first week you're hooked. We had 2 years left of college, so you worked with them for 2 years. So what was next? What did you do? You kind of know now, hey, at least I have a firm belief that this is what I want to do for a living and a career and a passion. What was the next steps for you as a coach?
Oh, okay. So as a coach, so I actually took a little bit of a hiatus. So college was ending for me, and as a young, dumb 21-year-old kid at this point, I thought I'm going to be at Stillwater High School forever. Nothing will ever change. There's no way that will not happen. And it was probably about spring break, maybe right after that, that I got a call from the principal at Stillwater High. Super great guy. He called me in. He was like, "Hey, listen, like, we really love what you're doing with the track and field program. You're super great, but I can't hire you, dude. Like, I can't hire you. You can't work here full time. Like, basically, sorry." And it was super respectful. It was much more professional than that. But
was that because you didn't have a degree in teaching, or they didn't have a spot open? What was that reasoning?
Both, but yes. So his deal, and I might be putting a spin on this now that it's been in the past. His explanation was that I did not have a teaching degree, so he couldn't hire me as a teacher. He could hire me as a track coach, but that would only get me about a $2,000 stipend,
right?
And unfortunately, a little less than what you can live on, even in Oklahoma. So right after that, I panicked. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know what's going to happen. And I actually took a job at a radio station in Oklahoma to put my sports media degree to use. And all the people at the radio station are wonderful. I grew a lot in that moment, but I was kind of miserable up there.
Were you a DJ or behind the scene producer? What did you do?
Yeah, all of it. So I was actually a reporter. I did like news and stuff. I did a few like basketball games, football games, calling those stuff. I would host. There's like a 6 o'clock 6 o'clock news broadcast. I would do that. I would DJ. They had like 4 stations, so I kind of do a little bit on each of those. But taking a step back, like out of coaching after I'd already been in coaching, I was just miserable. I was like, this is the worst. Like, now I'm feeling that resonance all the time again. This is just awful. And so while I was there, I had an opportunity I started what I call the Bartlesville Track Club. It's still a thing. Just so in that town, in that city, they have 2 little running clubs. One's called Run the Streets. It's taking like at-risk youth. They do 5Ks, train them up to get a half marathon. That's super cool. And then they have this Couch to 5K program that's really, really good. That's super cool. But if you are an adult that is a little bit maybe more inclined athletically than a Couch to 5K, there's not really anything for you. So I was like, I'm gonna start the Bartlesville Track Club, and I met a lot of really cool people. And that was a great experience for that year and a half, because I got to play around with them a lot. I got to experiment on like what coaching looks like. What are workouts that work for me? What do I like? What am I trying to see? How does this like? It was the hands-on rate, because you can Google and like, try this because this is what it works. But you get to see it in real time, in real life. Like, that was a really cool moment for me, and to be able to put the what and how to a lot of my why. So I did that while I was up there in Oklahoma. And then I applied for Village Tech. And I was really honestly like just really trying to get out of the radio station, really trying to get out of the radio and get back into school somehow anyway. And so my dad actually saw a Facebook post and was like, "Hey, Village Tech is hiring, apply for it." So I applied for it. I had a couple interviews, never thought I'd get it, and I got it. And so
what did you apply for? Because you still didn't have a teaching degree.
Sorry. Yeah. I applied for a communications position. So I was the communications coordinator at Village Tech. I came down. I'm pretty sure I said it in my interviews. I'm pretty sure I talked about my coaching and wanting to coach and whatnot. And I don't know if they took me seriously or not at that point. But when I got down here, maybe a week or two into it, the AD at the time sent a mass email out, and it was just like, I need a cross country coach. Like, is anybody interested? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm interested.
You're like, me, right here, right here.
Yeah, the interview process. He's like, have you coached before? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, all right, you're hired. I was like, okay, that's it. Oh, sweet. And so I'll be really blunt, and I say this with all the respect in the world, because the coach then is now my assistant coach now. He wanted to get back into coaching, and he's there. Coach Ingram, he's wonderful. But the program prior to me getting in there was not necessarily a cross-country program. It was we'll run and then go to maybe one race a year and see what that's like. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really they didn't really have practices. They didn't really go to meets. They didn't really do that. And that was kind of the same in track and field as well. And so I really kind of started from zero. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if there's any new coaches getting in right now. I promise, wherever you're at right now, it can be a little bit harder. It's probably hard. It's very challenging. I'm wishing you well. Please reach out. I'm happy to help. But it probably, unless you're starting from literally zero, it's probably could be worse. So we had no uniforms. We still to this day don't have transportation for our kids. We have some buses we're trying to fix up. We don't have them right now. We had no uniforms, no buses. We didn't have a team tent. We didn't have a cooler. We literally had nothing. And so my first day, I don't know how many, like 10, 12 kids come out for cross country. And they're all different age ranges, right? So we're pre-K through 12 charter. So I've got middle school kids and a couple of high school kids, not enough on anyone to have a full team on anywhere. I've got enough girls to be less than a team, enough boys to be less than a team, like no full team anywhere. And so I was like, okay, guys, like, what do we normally do when we start practice? And this Grayson, he's one of my seniors now. He's one of my top seniors. Was like, Coach, we don't do anything. I was like, what do you mean you don't do anything? He's like, we don't practice. Like, what do you mean? What do we do? Okay, all right.
he's like, I'm telling you, Coach, we don't do anything.
Like, here's what we're going. So we had to build everything from the ground up from what we do. And so I so lame sometimes. I get caught up sometimes in just watching our kids warm up without being told to. Like, they do our warm up lap now, and they do our dynamics without us like, time to do this. Like, let's go. Remember what it is. And that's one of the coolest things to see where we came from to be where we're at now. So we literally did nothing prior to this. And so we trained for, I don't know. When I got hired on, I was right as school started. And so, in the cross country world, if you were just starting practice when school starts, you're late. And so I had reached out to a ton of meets, ton of cross country meets. I was like, please let us in, please let us in, please let us in. And most of them were just like, it's too late. Like, it's happening. It's too late. And I get it. That's fair. And there was one meet that was about the third week of school in Covington, Texas. It is a very tiny little town in Covington, and they were so gracious to us, and they were like, come out, come race, it'll be great. So I was scrounging around for uniforms. I had placed an order through the school. Nothing had come in yet. So I was scrounging for order. We had some women's track uniforms that we were wearing. Just wear your own black shorts or any shorts, whatever at this point, just come out. The boys were like, Coach, do we really have to wear this? And I was like, I promise it'll get better. Just hold on. And we went to Covington, Texas, middle of nowhere, and raced. And I don't know. I don't know how I felt after that one. Because we really only practiced for 3 weeks. We did not win by any means. There was no moment of like, oh my gosh, like we've got potential.
Yeah, I was waiting for the Disney story you wanted.
No, there really wasn't. It just kind of happened. And two. Okay, so my cross country captain, who's a year older than me, my cross country captain, and then my best friend, who is a year younger than me in cross country. They both came to help me out in this meet. And so they came to Covington with me, and we're watching this race. And it's just like, what are we watching? Like, what is happening here? And it happened and it got done. And so I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm a big talker, I'm a big speech guy. So I'm like, what am I going to say? And like every parent was like, that was the coolest thing ever. And it was like, yeah, we got like it handed to us, right? And they're like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, we never go to races. This is like, to have a race, like, what are we going to do next week? And I was like, well, we got another race lined up. So we're going to go to that. We're going to train and go to that one. Like, it was just it was so cool. And it's so cool to look back on it now, to have like your fingerprints all over the program and how it was built. But if you've been in track for years, right? You've been in track for years. And if you were to start a program literally with kids that have never run track before, I would bet there are a lot of things that you would go through, and you'd be like, why aren't you doing this? And like, coach, you didn't tell us to. It's like, oh shoot, like, okay, like, you're right. You need to check in for your event. Like, your 100 meters coming up, you've got to check in. What does that look like? Okay, well, you've got to go. There's a table over here. You've got to go let them know your name. Well, and then what? Can I go back? Can I sit back down? No. You can't go sit back down. Once they give you the sticker, you got to put that on your hip. Which one? It's like, oh gosh, like every little thing you got to go through that. And so it was definitely a learning process in that first year. And man, I wouldn't trade that for the world. It was so much fun. Like, the last race of the year, it was like pouring rain. It was just disgusting outside. And they're like, coach, are we going to run in this? I was like, yeah, we're going to run in this. And they're like, well, but it's raining. I was like, welcome to cross country. But no, it was this really cool moment of like taking these, really truly young kids. My seniors now were 8th graders then. They're the core majority of the group that I brought up. And it was like, what do you want out of this thing? Like, do you truly want to be successful in running, or are you here because mom and dad are making you? And like, if it's the latter, then cool. Like, that's fine. Like, no harm, no foul. Like, I'm going to be cool. We're all going to be cool. Everyone's going to be fine. But if you really want to be successful in this thing, then here's the plan that we're going to lay out. And I'm telling you now, in this 8th grade year, it is not, like, I promise you, it's not going to be great. Like, but buy into the process of what we're doing. And that's been the same way in track too. We don't have a track here at Village Tech. We are in the process of trying to build one. So if anybody's looking to donate, my only stipulation is it has to be called the Ben Nicholas Memorial Track. But,
and it has to be purple.
Yeah, I'd be
Come
down.
on. Yes.
Down. So yeah, we don't have a track here. And so for all these years, my kids are just, I'm really proud of them because they've gone through so much adversity that normal quote unquote schools don't necessarily have to go through. Like, we don't have a track. So our 400-meter loop is a little bit short, but it's around our main campus. But you know what else happens at 6 o'clock in the morning? Early drop off for people that have before care. And so at 6 in the morning, even though we have reflector vests on, cars are still barreling in trying to drop off their kids. And so my kids have to weave out and dodge cars. And so that's not normal. That's not a normal thing that most schools should have to go through. At least it's that kind of stuff that my kids they just really have bought in. And I don't know. I think I got on a tangent there a little bit because I got the swelling and pride in my eyes for my kids here. But
hey, that was the other name for the podcast when we were naming it, was Tangent. It was like, yeah, let's just go on tangents, man. What I'm interested in, Ben, you brought up some really good points there about, first time going to a cross country meet or a track meet with these kids. It's the whole team because it's a brand new team, and they're all freshmen. And what I mean by that is, we've all had freshmen. It's like, oh, you got to teach them when and how and where to check in, and what do you do after that, and where to, where the staging area is, and the order of events, so you kind of know when you're going to be up and all that kind of stuff. You were doing that with everybody, and you had no help. When we have freshmen today, well, we have seniors and juniors that be like, come on, kid, let me show you.
Yeah, they're watching out for them.
Yeah. You had none of that.
Nobody. As
you were sitting there in that first season, these are my words, the first real cross country meet, and then the following one, not just one for the year, you're putting together a schedule, and you mentioned you won districts this year. Going back to that first season, was there any way you could envision the growth of the program at that point? Or was it just like, I was just trying to survive day by day?
I would love to tell you this answer of like, oh, I saw it from the beginning. I think the truth of it is that I saw that this team had potential, but only because of their character, only because of who they were, and they kept showing up day after day, and they kept doing the right things day after day because they're the right things to do. Um, and I'll be blunt, not from everybody. Not from everybody. That first year, I mean, shoot, that first year, probably up till year 3, maybe coming after the COVID year, our culture was building of who we wanted to be as people and as a program and doing the right things. But I don't know that it was there from everybody yet. But there was I mean, my seniors now, my 5 boy seniors now, my 1 girl senior now. I think from them, those 8th graders, I saw that like there was a potential to be a special team. And maybe not successful in the running sense and the athletic sense, but just the bond together. So the true answer is yes, but no. Like, yes, I saw there's potential, but no, I didn't necessarily see it in the athletic sense. But they were workhorses. And so you kind of know, like, the sky's relatively kind of the limit in this thing, if they continue to put the work in and grow. And it was after the COVID year. I think going into like whatever half of that 3rd year that was, but then going into our 4th year, that was the moment that the culture clicked. And so that was probably the earliest moment. I was like, oh my gosh, like we could be something. We could be.
I was going to ask you, because I have this like vision, you're building from, your words, scratch, 0, right? And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a Lego guy. I like Legos. I like building, and I'm not a free builder. Like, I need the instructions and start here and move up to where it becomes the entire thing. And for me, when I'm building Lego, when I'm 3/4 of the way done and I make a mistake, it's kind of no big deal. Like, I just pull the bricks off and take a step back in the instructions, like, oh, okay, this is where I screwed up, and you move forward. And then within an hour, depending on the build, it's done, and it's the finished product. When you're building Legos from the jump, from the get-go, and you make a mistake, it becomes frustrating because you can't see what the final picture is with what's laying in front. You're on bag 1 and there's a bag 30, depending on the set you got here. So as you're building this, you had, and a lot of us did, a lot of us listening right now, this is not unique. Again, congratulations, you're normal. But as you were building this, you had a huge building block, roadblock come in front of you, and that's COVID. You're building this culture, you're building something new, and then COVID hits, you have no season, kids go home for studies like that. How did you continue, or did you even drive culture through this really unbelievable time for teachers, parents, kids, and the like?
I think it was, it was hard. We all didn't really know what COVID was going to be like. And so, my assistant at the time, John Stivers, we decided that like we just needed to be there for the kids. And so we just kind of did we did virtual team meetings all the time. I bought Jackbox games and we just tried to play virtually all the time. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
What is that? What is Jackbox games?
Like, it's like an online, you just need your phone to play. It's like party games. You just need your phone to play. So I would try to share my screen through like Google Meets, and we would just try to play these games. We just try to have these team bonding things. And it was not by any means successful. It was not this like everyone was on all the time and it was great. But we just knew that like the isolation for us was not good. As an adult, that relatively fully formed brain.
Hey, speak for yourself.
More or less, yeah. My fiance would disagree with that. But we just, I don't know, we just tried to be there. And then when we were finally able to come back, I'm sure I get clowned for this in other coaching circles, but like the first 2 weeks, we did nothing but just play games. We did no practices. We did no like training, like, oh, we got to hit the ground. We just literally played games and let the kids be kids and get back to each other and stuff. And that was a really, it was kind of a blessing in disguise in the sense that like it kind of eliminated the people that didn't want to be there. We had some students again who were there and we're very thankful for them and thankful for their contribution to our team and our program. They're incredibly important to the history of who we are, but that were just kind of there because mom or dad were making them to be there, or a parent or grandparent or whoever, and it wasn't really for them. And fair enough. Life is too short to be doing stuff you don't enjoy doing. And COVID was a great exiting point for a lot of those kids. So we actually went from 30 some odd kids, which was the second biggest number in our program history, to like 11 or 12 maybe. We went back all the way to the beginning after the COVID year. And so for a little bit, it was like, what are we going to do? Like, oh my gosh, like this is a nightmare. And I'm not going to say it was like some restful nights in that moment. But we just kept showing up and the kids that were there, even though it sucked that we didn't have a big team like we had prior, the kids who were there still mattered. So that was it, point blank, period. Like it was tough. But the kids that were there mattered. And that was the only thing that mattered. That those kids were there and we're going to do everything we can for them.
I like your intentionality of, track and cross country is important to you. That's your job title and things like that. These kids have a lot of other stuff going on. And so your intentionality when they came back from COVID was, okay, instead of jumping straight in and hardcore back to training, which is important to me, I did air quotes there, right? These kids need to be together. So, and that was kind of probably a, I don't know if you were intentional in this, but that was maybe a big part of the culture coming back, like a jump start back to the culture, because the culture is the people, not the workouts, right?
No, it was intentional. At the end of every year, I do what's called the cross country Olympics, and people, please steal this, please use this.
Oh, let's hear this.
The cross country Olympics, and so once our season ends, we take about 2 weeks off, depending on kind of how the calendar lines up. We try to do it the week before Thanksgiving break, and we do a full week of no cross country specific games. It's just different activities. So I don't even have it planned for this year what we're exactly going to do. But in the past, we've done capture the flag. We do floor hockey. We have art contests sometimes. Well, I'll go into our like art rooms and I'll just pull out a bunch of the junk materials that they're about to get rid of, and I'll give them like an hour. It's like, good luck. And they're like, what am I making? And I was like, the coolest thing. That's like all I'll give them, and then I'll have like other teachers come judge it later, and they'll get points. And so they break up into teams, and that's their team for the whole week. So sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. I don't know. It's all like every year it's random. They have no idea what's coming, and because I don't know what's coming. So if I don't know what's coming, they don't know what's coming. But I'll keep tally of points and stuff throughout there, and it's just like whose lines anyway. Like there's no rhyme or reason to why these points are assigned the way they are. And so we'll keep tally of the points, and at the end of the week, I'll buy like off Amazon like some cheap like plastic medals, and I'll write in Sharpie on the back VTXC Olympics 2022, 2023, whatever. And I'll sign those medals. I'll give those medals out based on the teams that win. And has no cross country. We do academic competitions. We do like, we played Among Us a couple of years ago. Like we just do tons of stuff. And that's been the biggest culture builder for us. And we do it at the end of the season. And it helps bring, because the only way they can come is if they finish the season out. They don't get to drop off halfway through and then come to cross country Olympics. So we do that all season, and it's been the biggest culture builder because it gets kids excited for the next year. It gets them pumped for the next year. And so that was my mindset of going back into the like coming out of COVID, was that we hadn't had a chance to. I mean, we did do a cross country Olympics. We hadn't had a chance to do it for track season, and then we had whatever jumble of a cross country season it was before. So cross country Olympics, 2 straight weeks. We'll just do it.
when this publishes, this will be right past Thanksgiving. You have to
Yeah,
promise that you'll interact on Twitter and tell us what the games were this year.
I will.
I love that part of your culture. That's so unique. I love it.
It's cool. So okay, so shout out to Grayson and Cade. Cade is one of my captains. I'll shout out the other one in a little bit here. They have won 4 years in a row.
Wow.
And I'll be 100% very blunt and very honest with you. I have tried to stack these games against them. I have tried. So I let the kids pick their own teams. That's the only thing I don't really like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a hand in. But I've tried to stack games against them. I have tried to help influence other teams to pit each other against them. It does not work. I don't know like what the deal is. Grayson has a sister, Alyssa, who runs for us. Alyssa is wonderful. She lives with her brother 24/7. I mean, I don't know. And was coerced into like giving up enough points for Grayson and Cade to win last year. There was no way they were going to win last year. I had the whole thing stacked against them. And somehow Grayson tricked Alyssa into like letting them do something or whatever. And that ended up giving enough points. To this moment, I don't know how it happened, but they win every year. And so
Love it.
at this point, like, I don't know, like, I'm sure I'll have a different opinion once the Olympics are over, but do I help them keep the streak alive? Do I try to end it for them? They're both seniors now. I don't know. Like, what do they come back next year? They just keep playing until they finally lose the title. Like, are they gonna be 40-year-old dudes coming back here still playing? They just won all these years. I don't know.
You know, you made a point earlier and you just demonstrated it perfectly. You know, the kids are not going to remember this trophy, this place, this PR, but they're going to remember Grayson talking his sister into
Yes.
whatever hoodwinks he did to get that. That's the things that they're going to remember when they're at each other's weddings, starting businesses together, family, you know, friend reunions. That's what they're going to remember, man. That's so awesome. And I know you don't think about it this way, but, you know, I have to give you your props. That comes from leadership. You know, these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids would not have done that on their own. They would have come up with something, but not in that realm. And they certainly wouldn't have thought about it in the scope of like, what is this going to look like in 20, 30, 40 years? So the leadership from you and your staff, man, that's bravo. That's pretty stinking cool, man. I love that.
Thank you. I think it's special. I think it's special because we're not special. And I mean that with all the love in the world. My kids are the absolute greatest kids. I respect all, fear none, like mentality in this. Like, I'll put my kids up against anybody in terms of like the greatest, whatever that criteria is. But they're not born from Olympian families. They're not bit by radioactive spiders. They are just like normal kids from a normal place who have bought in, and they've bought into each other. They've bought into themselves. They've bought into their team. They've bought into me. Like, that's the specialness of this whole thing. And so the cross country Olympics is so much fun, but it could be so lame if they didn't buy in. They were like, no, I'm not doing this. Well, okay. Like, why are you here then?
Right.
And so it's been really cool to have them buy in. And it's just, and again, it started back in 4 or 5 years ago. It's just like, I give you no reason to trust me, but trust me. Like go all in on this one thing. And like, if you feel like it's not working, you feel like it's not happening, like, come talk to me. Come, like, we'll figure this out. Because ultimately, I tell my kids at the start of every year, like, I cannot coach without them, but they can be successful runners and athletes in a cross country team without me. So it is not this like dictator relationship where like, do what I say because like I'm all powerful in this thing. No. Like, I need them more than they need me. And so I want us to have this relationship back and forth. I say this cautiously. I want to be the coach that, like, if a kid were ever in trouble at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., they could call me immediately. I want to be that coach. I say that cautiously because I never want that to happen. I pray that never happens. But I want to be, I want to have that relationship where they feel like they can trust me, and we can help. Like, I can help however I can.
Well, let's change lanes here a little bit, but stay on the track. Ben, what have you done? You know, again, still relatively young. I remember your age and where I was in coaching. It's quite amazing. And I, you know, I think, you know, you have a lot of probably thought I knew it all at your time, and now realize I probably did know it. No, I knew nothing. But what have you done? What are you doing in regards to coaching, education, professional development? Anything from the formal stuff like USATF and USTFCCA and Altus, things like that, to even informal stuff of like, yeah, I've got a group of mentor coaches that I call and bounce off. And we don't talk X's and O's here, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, what have you done to continue to get better at the X's and O's and the other things that aren't the X's and O's that are critical to being a good coach?
Well, I just did my USATF last year. And so that was a really big deal for me personally. I really wanted to do that. I really want to participate in that. And I learned just a ton from that. I did not get a chance to go to, I missed it this year. I don't know how I missed it on Twitter. I was trying to go to the summer clinic for what is it? The Texas Association for Coaching. Somehow I missed that one. But I usually go to their summer and then winter clinics, or at least attend virtually. I don't know how I missed it this year. I still text David Crines. I still text him with questions and stuff. I had him come out and, or not come out. I had him do a team meeting right before district with my kids. And they talked about controlling the inner narrative in your head of what's going on. One thing we face a lot is like, with the pressure from the outside, we can handle fine. It's our own internal pressure that I've found that our kids, we had an earlier meet this year. Sorry to go on this little thing. We had an earlier meet this year where they like, and this was my fault. I put way too much pressure on them. I keep note cards of like my talking points before each meet. And I had all these things and I was like, oh, I put so much pressure on them, so much internal pressure that they crumbled under. It was probably our worst meet of the year. And it was like, going back, I was like, what happened? And I was like, it was within them. They couldn't live up to their own pressure. And I put so much on them, and that made them, it's like, okay. So controlling that inner narrative too. And then just like Twitter is great, man. I love Twitter. I have found so much helpful stuff that I didn't even consider that we would do. We've done some stuff. We've done some different drills this year that I really think for the most part have kept us pretty. I mean, we're pretty well injury free this year for cross country. I pray that continues during track season too. Because we were injury free, I don't know that they were 100% effective, but they weren't not effective. So, but just implementing that kind of stuff as we go into the off season, I've actually learned a lot from some strength and conditioning coaches just on Twitter and just like tweeting at them, DMing them. Thanks to you, man. My coaching network has grown quite a bit. So, but just constantly asking out, just constantly asking questions. Because again, I want to be the greatest coach ever and whatever, have my name in lights, but it's not about me. It's about the kids. And so like, what can I do to make sure that they are as properly prepared as possible? And we're always growing. We're always constantly doing things, like mistakes happen and whatever else. But just the act of moving forward has been really important to me, and for our kids too. That is part of the culture, is like, I do this a lot. Next play, like whatever it is, next play, and everything else is just noise. So I'm like a walking quote machine. But
well, I appreciate your comments about Twitter, because if anybody knows me, that's, you know, I basically I live in my own metaverse, and it's on Twitter basically. And I love your sentiments there about how you've grown your network and reached out to strength and conditioning coaches, because that to me is the positive power of social media. I mean, certainly there are some negatives to social media, and as adults there's a difference to me between young kids on social and what they consume, and adults, because adults, we should have the ability and the expertise to drone out the bad people, the people that are saying things that you don't want in your life. There is a mute button on Twitter and pretty much every social media. There is a mute button to stop those people, to where your timeline never has those people, those, whatever you want to call them, trolls, whatever, or just people you just don't agree with because of their beliefs and philosophies, etc. You just tune them out. My timeline is amazing. I have 99% positivity on my timeline, because when someone speaks negatively, you're out. I don't have time for it. I don't have time for it. And I don't have a desire for it. So I love that you've been able to use Twitter in this example as a positive thing for you. Let's do a quick commercial about Twitter then. So if you're on Twitter, Ben, how does someone get a hold of you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle there?
Ben Nicholas 47. is my my Twitter handle.
All one word, no dots, dashes.
No, let me look. I don't think so. I don't think it's
Yeah. See, and did you say 47?
47. Yes.
What is the significance of 47? Usually the number means something.
Yeah, all one word. Ben Nicholas 47.
Perfect.
I was a big Brett Favre fan growing up.
Oh man.
And then my first like number I ever got when I was in soccer was number 7. So I just kind of combined the two. And so teams don't have, I tell this all the time. So my number in cross country was also 47 because that's how I picked it. And they're like, oh, we didn't know cross country teams have numbers. They don't. They really don't.
Got it.
But at Mansfield High School, we were assigned a top, a bottom, a practice shirt, a bag. I think we had spikes that year, but maybe we ran through those. Anyway, all of it was number 47. So when it was time to turn it back in, you just turn it in a number. So that's how I explain it. It's not really a number. It's just like how we turn things in. So 47 was it, and I just kind of stuck with it.
I like it, especially in track. Numbers mean something. So anytime someone has a number in their Twitter handle or somewhere, their email, I'm like, okay, that number means something. What is it? I love that. Yeah. Well, check out Ben on Twitter, Ben Nicholas 47. He's a great, we've been connected for a while now, Ben, and I really do appreciate that. But check out Twitter, man. I will never, well, I shouldn't say never. Today, at least, I will do nothing but speak great about Twitter and social media as it relates to what do they call it? Track Twitter. All the track coaches and
no, it's so cool.
Guys and gals are amazing.
It's so cool, and I know comparison is a thief of joy here, but it all depends on how you frame it. There is so many times I'll take like professional workouts. I'll see things like the professionals running. Cade Flat is a huge, like, I love Cade Flat. He's the coolest kid ever. And we'll take his stuff and I'll just like show my team, and it's like, look what he's doing, and like look what we're doing. Like, are we at the same level? No, sure. But we're in the same realm. We're in the same universe. We're in the same sport. Like, look at this thing. Okay, he's doing 8 sets of these things, and we're only doing 6. That's fine. Like it's confidence in where you're at and confidence in what you're doing. But it's like, I tell my kids, like, we're running a big boy program over here. We're running a big boy program, and like, yeah, we're going to adjust, and yeah, we're going to do things to fit us. But this is, and for us being in a small school, we're a 3A school in UIL. I say this is what the big program's running all the time. This is what the big boys run. We're doing the same thing that they're doing. There is no difference between you and them. And again, that goes back to like, we respect all, but we fear none. Realistically, is there any chance that we're going to win the 6A state title? No, because we're a 3A school and we're not even going to state. But I would bet every dollar I have that we could beat them. Like any given day. Like, that's how much faith I have in this team. And that's kind of our culture of like what we believe. Like, any given day, like, we're going to compete and until hell freezes over, kind of a thing. So.
Well, let's change lanes again, but this time let's step off the track. As I introduced you today, you also are the athletic director of a school, of a 3A school. That's nothing to be.
I am.
That's a big deal and a big job. Talk to us. How do you, I think important for track, and I usually speak about this in college terms, but this definitely revolves around high school as well. For us to become bigger, badder, better in track and field, we need more people in administration that are track people. So I love it and celebrate when a track coach becomes an AD at a college, assistant AD, whatever, in high school, when the athletic director was or is the track coach. Those are good things because now we have track people in the seats that are making very important decisions about our sport, funding, coaches, et cetera, professional development. So talk to us about what's it like being an athletic director. What does that entail for you as the track coach? What do you, what are the, I'm going to say air quotes here, the major sports? I mean, do you have a football, basketball, baseball team, those kind of things that you oversee? Talk to us about that part of your professional life.
So it is a constant growing experience. Let me tell you, it is not something that I thought I would ever be involved in. And I'm very blessed and very thankful for it. I will tell you, my love is coaching. My love of the two is coaching. And so if I had to give up one, I'd give up being the AD immediately. As I feel like a lot of people who are in that kind of dual role would do. We do at Village Tech most of the major sports. We do not do tackle football. So we do not do tackle football. We do participate in some flag football. But volleyball, cross country, basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, dance, cheer, track and field, of course. Um, that is well,
That
and I
is a
also
lot.
it is a lot. And then also we do like chess, speech and
Mm-hmm.
debate.
Mm-hmm.
We I believe, I don't want to speak wrongly on this, but I do believe we're doing something with theater this year too. That one's a little bit out of my realm on that one specifically. But yeah, we do a lot. We have the opportunity to go into tennis. We're kind of exploring that opportunity. Really where we're at is if we have enough kids to field a team, and we obviously we have the opportunity through our league to do it. We're esports. We're doing esports.
Oh yeah.
We're diving into that. Yeah, we do a lot. It's crazy.
So what's that mean for you on a daily basis? You know, on a track coach, we have track coaches on the show every day, right? So we kind of know what the rhythm, and everyone's a little unique, but you know, we kind of know the rhythm of practice in the afternoon, et cetera. What does that mean to be oversight of all of these sports and all of these coaches as well?
It is a lot of time and a lot of hours consumed. And well, I guess she'll be my wife at that point. My wife, Alyssa, at the point this is going to be premiering. We're getting married on the 25th of November.
Oh man, I didn't know it was that
Yeah,
soon. Holy cow.
getting married 25th of November. So my fiance, Alyssa, is just absolutely the most wonderful human being. And I love her so much and so dearly. She puts up with so much. Um, I am constantly at something all the time, every time, everywhere. And so on a day-to-day basis, it's literally, well, we'll talk about during cross country season. It's coming in at 6:30, running practice till 7:30, making sure all the boys and girls are out of the locker rooms into the class they need to be in by 8:15, starting a study hall at 8:15, and during that study hall till probably about 11-ish. Normally, it's just going through all the forms and going through all the paperwork, going through all the purchase order stuff if we're trying to buy things. I'm just trying to crank through as many emails as I can possibly crank through. And so it's just really time consuming, but it's really cool too. You mentioned that you like when track people are in it. I also agree because I'm a big track person. In fact, track's my first love. I know I talk about cross country a lot because that just happened, but track is my first love in this thing. But it's cool because the smaller sports on our campus, but in our programs, I hope they feel this way. They get the same amount of love that the bigger sports do. Like basketball takes care of itself. I love basketball, huge supporter of basketball. Our season starts like the 31st today, Monday, for our middle school program. They take care of themselves. They don't need a hype man out here. They're doing that all on their own. Like I don't get me wrong, I get the stuff. We order the uniforms they need, the balls, the equipment. We go through all that stuff, but they do bad all on their own. But the smaller sports that we don't necessarily have kids coming out to, softball is another one that's outside of cross country and track. Like I'm actively trying, like, how do we get people out? How do we get people to participate? But how do we get love shown to them too? And it's going through that, and it's a constant challenge. And my curse is that I feel like I can coach any sport anytime with no background in it. Like I was watching a volleyball game the other day for our girls, and I was like, I could coach this. Like I was like, they call a timeout, and I was like, this is exactly what I would say in this timeout. Like this is what we're doing. Like, and all of my coaches love and hate that. Like, we love your support. Please coach your own sport. Like, all right, fair enough. But no, it's just really busy, but it's really cool because I get to see athletes are different because they did play different sports, but as a whole, they're similar in the sense that, like, again, they're still just kids, and they're still kids, and they're trying to grow, and they're trying to learn, and they're trying to, just, I don't know, seeing them step up and be leaders is like the coolest thing. It's in the past, so I'll talk about it now. Our basketball team kind of got in trouble the other day. About a month or two ago, and so after they had been properly talked to at the school, some of the leaders were like stepping up and making sure like the younger kids got to class. I have a picture on my phone of like one of our captains like literally holding the backpacks of two boys and like dragging them to class. Like it's cool to see them step up in those moments. I mean, like, listen, this is what matters. And this is what's going to take to be successful as a team, to be one unit. Like we're going all in for it. So it's really cool to see that in different avenues other than just cross country or just track. I think it also helps because it allows me to kind of bring that hype level that basketball players have and bring that same language, that same talk, that same energy to track and field. Because I think we're very humble in track, and I think we got to quit that. The Fred Curleys of the world, the Cade Flats of the world, are looked down upon because they're outspoken. And I think there's a difference between being aggressive and cocky and then being confident and proud of what you're doing. And so I'm trying to bring that into our track program too, as well. Like if we are successful, we're doing what we're supposed to do, be proud, walk like it, talk like it, act like it. That doesn't mean go out to another team's camp and be yelling at them and picking, right? We're not trying to do any of that. But don't let anybody talk down to you. Like, when you play that game on the line, I'm like, what are your PRs? What are your times? Oh, I'm running a 12. Like, get rid of it. Like, be confident in what you're doing. Like, you don't have to partake in any of that. Like, be confident. Like, I'm here to win. Like, it's that kind of stuff. And so I think that stems also, it's a really cool thing that stems from basketball, from soccer, from baseball. Like, those same mentalities that they have, we're able to take into the track and field world. And again, the humbleness of track is able to go back to theirs.
In your job of an athletic director, what's the hardest thing for you as you sit in that chair? And what I mean by that, I'm thinking about, there's everything from parent involvement, officials, travel, fundraising, participation. You mentioned, what's like, if you had to boil it down to like, here's what keeps me up at night as the athletic director, Ben Nicholas.
There are two main things. Participation in women's athletics is one of them. I have not been able to figure this one out. And so if anybody has an idea, please let me know. We just don't have huge participation in women's athletics. And I would love to grow that. And I've been working with some of our lady coaches. Outside of volleyball, it is tough sometimes, like for basketball. So I think that solution is getting good coaches and getting them in the right spots where they need to be, and powerful women leaders. And I think all of our genuinely all of our coaches in our women's sports are wonderful, powerful leaders. It just takes time from what we've traditionally had to where we're at now. So that keeps me up because I'm impatient. I'm just like I want it to be done now. I don't want to stress about that. And the second thing is facilital stuff. We are still growing at Village Tech. We've been around since 2013, but I would say our athletics program as a whole encompassing everything, firing on the same page, has only been around for 5 years, really since I took over. We've had sports done in the past. We have been successful, but it's kind of been these one-off little shoots where it feels like the school has gone all in for basketball this year, or they've gone all in for this, and not necessarily we're one whole athletic department. And so I say all that to say we're still growing. We have one gymnasium, period. And we're very thankful, very blessed for it. That is not a criticism on that. But I've got I have 4 volleyball teams, 5 basketball teams, 1 gymnasium.
Wow.
Facilital stuff like that is a killer. I've got I have 4 soccer teams. They only play 2 at a time, thankfully, just based on the age levels. But we have to rent city league fields. And the city's been great. They've been super awesome with us. But nonetheless, they have other people use those. So you can't just take them whenever we want. Same thing for baseball, same thing for softball. Our track team, again, still doesn't have a track. And so we have to go to another school during their, what do they call that? The free use hours or whatever they have for their public hours for that. That's how we have to practice. And we don't have transportation. So it's all just facilital stuff and figuring that out. And so again, our kids are special because of what they've endured, and they don't know any different. But I tell my kids all the time, I was like, you have done a lot without even knowing it, just because it's normal to you. But it's not normal to have to go through all of these challenges, and yet you have responded to this adversity as opposed to reacting to it. You could have reacted to it and thrown a fit and whatever else, and you've responded to it. And that's again a testament to our kids first and foremost, but our coaches too, of saying, okay, here's the challenge we have, and yes, I can complain about not having a track and how are we going to do this, but the fact of the matter is that doesn't get our team better. So, okay, we're going to take this punch on the chin, but what do we do now? What do we do from here? And so it's a growing process for sure. The school, Village Tech, is wonderful. I highly believe in it. I'm thankful to be here, but it wasn't built for athletics. So to introduce these things and to try to do them at a high level has been it's been a fun challenge. But nonetheless, I definitely have gray hairs now because of it.
Well, you don't build legacy by continuing on someone else's winning streak, right? You have to
Right.
build something. It's called building a legacy. I love it. Well, Ben, as we start to wrap up here today, what has got you excited? You're coming off of a district. I assume this is your first district championship. That's a big deal. You're going into track season. You're working to build a new facility one day. What's got you excited about Viper Squid? I almost said Viper Squad, Viper Squid, cross country and track and field.
Yeah, so we just won our district championship, and if you will allow me to, I would love to shout out my team on this.
Please, 100%.
This has been a 5-year in the making deal, and this was the varsity boys that won. But I want to be very, very clear. This is the varsity boys, but it's also our varsity girls and our middle school boys and middle school girls trophy. And it's our few. I think we only have two graduated seniors. It's their trophy too. Wow. It's been this work in process and in progress for years. And so everybody's had a hand in this thing. And it's not just one team's trophy. But I want to shout out my two captains, Cade Williams and Aiden Monahan. They have been the absolute just greatest captains in the world. Just had the absolute heart and love for each other, but the team, the desire to get better. Aiden did 500 miles this summer. And he did 500 miles with Grayson, who was our top finisher boy. So shout out to those three: Cade, Aiden, Grayson, Marco, Jacob, Josh, and Elijah. That's our 7 right there. Shout out to Dawson, another senior. Shout out to Lydia, one of our seniors. Let's see, on my girls team, I know this is gonna be a lot, but I really want to get them in here. So Lydia's on the girls team, Michaela, Alyssa, shout out to them, Peyton as well, Skylar, Julia. That's my girls team there. That's 6. I said Dawson earlier, Creed, Isaiah. Gosh, it's hard to do this on the top of my head. Ashton, that's my high school boys. That's the entire high school boys, and then both of my middle school programs too. And shout out to Gracie as well, who was a huge influence and impact in the last year. So she didn't run this year, but was a huge impact there. So that's what I'm really excited for. I'm really excited for the district championship. I'm really pumped about it. We haven't stopped celebrating it yet. And again, it's just the culmination of everything that they've done. And again, even if they had not won that, I'd still be incredibly proud of them because we did literally everything we possibly could have done, and we did it right. And so I'm really excited for track season to see what comes next. We'll see. I'm hoping that we have a couple of sub 5 milers at the end of this track season. We're right on that line. We're right at 5:05 ish. So I'm really hoping we can push those past there. But I'm just really excited for the future of Village Tech and our program as a whole. I really truly feel that we have the best coaches, staff that we've ever had, coaching staff, if you will. I don't know. There's a lot to be pumped about. And I'm just grateful for all of it. I'm really grateful for all of it. They're just proud to be their coach. I really, truly am.
Well, I'm excited for you too. Leadership has never been more important than it is today. And so while I know you're extremely proud, it's quite obvious your face changes when you start mentioning Grayson and all these other guys and gals out there. But you know what But does, it erases everything in front. Those kids are great, and they're going to be future coaches. One or more of them is going to be on the Gill Connections podcast one day in a decade or so. But it takes that leadership. So from you and your staff and the teachers and the parents around there, none of this happens without direction, driving forward. And so when you say you're excited, man, that's what begets excitement from others. I think it's going to be a great year. It's already been a great year. I mean, come on, a district championship is nothing to
No,
sniff
it's
out. That is
huge.
a big deal.
It's
There
so
are
huge.
more teams that didn't win it that did win it.
For
So
sure.
that's awesome.
Well, so when I run and I listen to your podcast and I listen to these coaches and stuff, and I get inspired by them and I get inspired and learn so much from them. And so my hope is that like somebody's out there running and listening to this, or maybe driving and listening to this. The district championship is great, but that is an outlier to this whole thing. It really truly is. I'm very proud of it, but like again, we're not special in the sense that like we're born from mutants or space aliens or anything like that. Like we're just a group of normal people who really bought in and believed and cared about each other and worked hard and grinded together, and that's truly it. And so if you're in the same position, that you're just like, man, how do I get my team better? Like, or you're beginning a program, like I hope that like this is inspiring to the sense of just buy in. Like it truly just buy in. And if at the end of the day it does not work out, because sometimes you can do everything right and it still doesn't work out. At the end of the day, if it didn't work out, but you gave everything that you had to it, you truly bought in, and they're better people at the end of it. That is, I'll take losses for the rest of my life if they are better people exiting this program. And I know that that's easy to say now when you have the trophy, but I thoroughly believe that. And we've been through a lot of losing seasons. So
Yeah, you've made your point on that one. True.
so,
I love it, man. Ben, well, thank you so much. One of the most valuable things that you can ever give anybody, and us here in this situation, is your time. It just means the whole world to me. Again, you talked about how busy you are and what's keeping you up at night as an athletic director, plus the cross country and track coach. And, there are many, many other things you could have and should have been doing than joining us here for this past hour and a half, man. So I'm just so thankful, so grateful that you would share your journey with our listeners today on the podcast.
of course, thank you so much for having me again. This has been a dream come true.
Well, the real dream, and it's weird because it's podcast recording, right? So when you're listening to this, my man Ben and Alyssa have gotten married. That's quite amazing.
Yes.
So we're going to congratulate you in real time, not real time. I don't know. This is the weird.
Thank you. We're excited to be married.
Yeah. That's the real, yeah, exactly. That's the real dream come true. So shout out to Ben on Twitter. If you've made it this far, go to Twitter at Ben Nicholas 47. And don't tell him how great of a coach he is. He is. Don't tell him how great of a person he is. He is. Tell him congratulations on getting married. Obviously Alyssa is a great person to put up with a track coach, right? That's a tough thing to be spouse of a track and cross country and athletic director. So Alyssa, I know you're still listening. Congratulations. I just know that it was an amazing wedding. So real proud of you guys for having done that, and we'll do that, whatever the time space continuum is on that, man. Ben, man, thank you so much, man. Really do appreciate you being here today and making our podcast better, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for being here and listening once again, man. Our journey here, uplift and honor coaches from around the country. I love what a coach has been coaching for 40 years or 4 years, because there's so much to unpack and to learn, and the mentors along the way. I love what you talked about today with Rusty, and really why, what's the secret? What's the magic pill? And Rusty Atkins said, they're people first, they're students second, and then if there's time, they're athletes third. And I think that is so important as a coach. And what we didn't get to riff on, and maybe we'll have to do it at a future guest or have Ben come back, or maybe we'll take this discussion to Twitter, Ben, is how does that look like for you, the person who chooses to be a track coach? We like to think and sometimes put coach as our first thing, right? But as we're learning here with Ben, he's about to become a husband, right? He's a teacher. He's a leader of kids, of student athletes, and he's a coach. How do we put that in the right priority? So Ben, promise me, let's make sure we have that conversation when we publish, when people are listening. Let's bring that important discussion to Twitter and have people talk about priorities of your roles, because I think that's one important thing that we don't always want to talk about. We like to just think coaches first and foremost, and boy, we're sons and daughters and husbands and wives and parents. There's a lot more roles that need to be above that. So thanks for being here again today. Join us next week. We're going to do it all over again. We're going to have another amazing coach discussing their journey in this great profession and see what we can learn. All right. We'll talk to you next week, guys. Have a good one.